Every once in a great while, I'll come across something that forces me to concoct elaborate, highly improbable scenarios to rationalize its existence. Case in point, Cybertron Downshift. I can't help imagining that the big heads at Hasbro all got together one day and had a brainstorming session wherein they said, let's think of everything you don't see enough of in Transformers figures, and also everything that Caleb could possibly want, and take those two piles and smush them together into one figure. Now, I know the proper way to do a review is to be like, bloggity blah blah, assorted points, and that's why I like or don't like the thing in question. But, as usual, I'm going to spoil the ending and just tell you right now that this is probably in my personal top 5 out of my entire frighteningly vast collection. And I'm going to go ahead and say it's my absolute favorite in the deluxe class. The general consensus, at least as I understand it in the Transformers community, is that bigger is better. Or if it isn't the consensus, then it's at least what I think. Ha-ha! Keep it coming. Bit more. Okay, that's enough. So for a figure to be so small but still so awesome is pretty impressive. Okay, time for less gushy and more specific. In my little theoretical brainstorming session at the start of the video, I mentioned that the imaginary Hasbro executives were wanting to include something specifically aimed at me. I love this paint job. It is just so tasty. It's hard to go wrong with black, and green is already my favorite color, but I especially like greens in this particular shade range, because you only ever really find them on old muscle cars, military vehicles, and anime chick hair. These are a few of my favorite things. I would say I'm a pretty enthusiastic muscle car enthusiast. Unfortunately, I'm completely mechanically inept. I don't have the faintest idea how they work. I just think they're pretty. I kind of regard old muscle cars in the same light as hot pretend lesbians. I like them, and I'm pretty good at model and year, but alas, they remain something ever to be admired only from afar. Sad. I mention that just to keep you from getting the idea that I'm a gearhead or anything even remotely cool like that. But still, I'm appalled and flabbergasted and any number of other words no one uses in conversation that there aren't more muscle car Transformers. In recent memory, there's pretty much just this guy and tiny, tiny little makeshift. Aside from that, throughout the entirety of the Transformer line's existence, I think the only other examples would be the Laser Rods and the Hot Rod Micromaster Patrol. That is rather paltry. Fortunately, Downshift makes up for a lot of lost time. And best of all, if there's a particular muscle car that's like your favorite, it's probably in here somewhere. Because he isn't a precise match for any specific one, he's just got bits and pieces of a whole bunch of them. The back end of maybe a post-70 Barracuda, rear quarter panel that looks like it probably came off a Charger, mid-body that could be any number of cars, maybe a Nova or a pre-70 Cuda, and then a front end that's somewhere between Chevelle and GNS, but is a bit too squared off and doesn't really have the right grille for either. You can't boss this Boss Barracuda and bits and pieces of other cars around. That's actually my one and only beef with the vehicle mode, is that the front end is just a tad bit old lady, but like a heavily tatted, ripped old lady. Oh my, it looks like someone needs to catch a beat down. He also comes with these bolt-on missile launchers, which I'm really torn about, because on the one hand, the vehicle mode looks 10 times better without them, but oh, how I love bolt-on weapons. The conflict tears upon my very soul. If that's the biggest issue I have to tackle today, then my life is wonderful and sad at the same time. Now to the thing that we don't see enough of. Or actually, I guess it would be the thing that we don't see enough of. Oh, never mind. The thing that I'm stupidly yammering about is the fact that Downshift is really convincing as a car because you can't find any pieces of robot sticking out anywhere. That is a rare treat. The sole exception is on the undercarriage, where you can just barely make out a little bit of leg. But if that's all you can see, that's still pretty outstanding. And really kind of ironic, since Energon Downshift is one of the worst shell formers I've ever seen. You couldn't at least turn your head around? I mean, that would help some. Nice to see you got your act together. Robot mode is a pretty obvious homage to Wheeljack. There aren't that many Transformers with a slinky for a face and that talk with their ears. In fact, I think in Galaxy Force he just was Wheeljack. On that note, Downshift is in perfect scale with the Classics Deluxes, which means I can pretend that he's the Classics Wheeljack we never got, and probably never will get. The launchers from his vehicle mode can be held in robot mode Yun Fat style, or bolted onto his massive shoulders to keep his hands free. For the ladies. Now, I said he was in scale with the Classics Deluxes, but he is a fair bit more stout and pudgy. With his near lack of a torso and hilariously protuberant man rack. That's okay though, he actually should be stocky. He looks just like a muscle car Transformer should look. All wide and burly. Besides, it's totally possible to be squat and chunky and still be lovable. So I've gone over the obvious reasons why Downshift is good. He's a muscle car and I like muscle cars, and he's green and I like green, and he's obviously supposed to be Wheeljack and I like Wheeljack. But there are a couple of bonus criteria he meets that just really push him over the top. Bonus criteria number 1, stability. This guy is a rock. Well, I'm sorry, I mean rock! That's actually a callback to an inside joke I haven't established yet. I'm sorry if that's illegal. It'll make sense in a future video. Anyway, check this out. Downshift's burliness versus all of Megabot's missiles, including the Fatty. Yep, couldn't withstand the Fatty. Still, that's not bad. Bonus criteria number 2, clickitude. Everything in both modes snaps into place nice and solid. There's nothing just sort of laying there or flopping around. Well, this roof bit kind of is, but gravity takes care of that. So Hasbro, if you're listening, and I know you aren't, please sir, can I have some more? Too old to be relevant and not old enough to be retro. Oh, he's like a little me.